Okay, hi guys. Now we have an interesting session today because it's not a traditional presentation, it's a roundtable discussion, which means that I'm only going to talk for a portion of the time and then we are going to open the floor for everybody to discuss what I presented as well as you can bring your own problems, your topics, your own opinions in terms of AI, or in this case, we kind of mean mostly Gen AI implementations, and how to put the guardrails around them. And really, are we ready for Gen AI in terms of guardrails and how to handle it? I have not included a slide about myself. For people who don't know me, what you need to know right now is that for the last over 12 months now, I've been predominantly working into the generative AI space and the cybersecurity, as this is my background. I have, I think, I said many Gen AI projects now because you really count up until maybe 10ish, and then after that you say, okay, there are many. So I don't even know how many exactly I have. Some of them are repetitive, but I will show you what I actually mean about that. So the way the session is organized today, we're going to have about 5 minutes introduction, which I think we already used, about 25 to 30 minutes of presentation time. Again, the question I'm going to try to ask you, to provoke you to ask yourself is, are we Gen AI ready? So we're going to talk about the guardrails. We are going to talk about, and everything will be with a use case and example behind it. So hopefully that will be helpful. And then we're going to open the floor for the roundtable discussion, about 25 to 30 minutes, as much as we have. And then we'll wrap up. The idea behind the wrap up is to let Jeremy and Raj and me, of course, let us know what do we want to explore next. What is a good topic? What is a good discussion that we would like to have in terms of Gen AI? Again, we kind of right now have AI and Gen AI stream within the Purple Book community. Our book has its own chapter on Gen AI for AppSec. Please, if you'd like to contribute, Raj or Jeremy will post the link. So you feel comfortable to go there and contribute. The chapter is already started. There's some material there, but we always want volunteers and, of course, reviewers, not just people to write stuff. And the discussion topics are circled around build a strong Gen AI foundation. What does it mean? Are we ready to do that? How to do that? Mitigation, security risk, addressing ethical concerns, explainable AI, best practices for implementation, integration and adoption, measuring our goals, our ROIs. So these are kind of how the session is structured today. And with that, let's get started. My first slide is talking about the Gen AI state, where we are today. What are our trends? What are your opportunities today? And before even saying anything about that, there are two things. Usually the main question is, what can Gen AI do for me? Right? That's usually every single person. And then the second most important thing is it's a change. It's a change the way we write our emails. It's the change we interact with each other even. It's a change how we use materials or how we read, how we receive our information. It's a change how we do our business, how we write code, how do we secure our environment. So all of this is a change. And so for me, Gen AI really equals to a big change of how we do things and how we think about things. Otherwise, the normal concept that's faster, cheaper, better, of course, as every new technology applies here as well. So why we are talking, what are our trends and why we're talking so much about Gen AI today? Well, since 2022, when the whole world became the QA department of OpenAI, 2023 moved ahead to be experimentation, kind of a researching area, right? Oh, well, what's happening? Oh, let me take a look. I don't have budget now, but maybe that's going to be helpful. And then 2024 is a year when we saw implementation, some pilots, vendors offering their products and services. So we're in a companies are having budgets. There was some research, I think Gartner saying that 60% of the CIOs are planning, they have budget and they are planning some type of a Gen AI to be included into their project. So there's a lot of movement. This basically is based on advancement in the LLMs, the NLP technologies. But it also brings significant concerns, majorly around safety, ethic, bias, explainability, how actually this whole ecosystem impacts on us. We have a lot of applications already directly into the life, into people's hands, especially around content generation, chatbots, decision making. And from security point of view, there's one thing I want you to take away from this session. First of all, and most important, the old security considerations still apply. Cross-site scripting, SQL injections can still hurt us. And then we also have AI-specific vulnerabilities and attack vectors that we need to be prepared, we need to understand, and we need to be prepared for. Do we have a question? If not, I'm going to continue with the next slide. So this slide is listing some of the GenAI projects that I worked on. So these are all the things that I have done, but I think that this overlaps with what the industry is looking today, of the kind of the definition of the use cases that companies are looking to deploy in these areas. And before to go through the table, let me make one condition. There's two different sides. One is a security for AI, and the second one is a AI for security. So today, we are going to cover more about security for AI. Are we ready to secure AI? What is required? What are the problems? What are the challenges in various different implementations? And then we can leave a little bit more discussion time for AI for security, which is not, we'll touch upon it, but it's not exactly the topic of this presentation. So the major use cases, as you all may imagine, just knowing what OpenAI is, for example, for multiple years now, is the content generation. Now, in business terms, we talk about report generation, financial statement, predictive analytics that I can use real time to make my decisions upon. We have a lot of creative content from various areas, a lot of marketing, email campaigns, and of course, social engineering, attacks on us based on using AI for generation. Code generation is one topic that you guys asked me to have, to talk about, so I have a whole slide on it. Data augmentation, I participated in a few projects when we had to generate specific synthetic data so we can remove bias from models, so this is very applicable. Basically introducing new data to test, this is very important as well, and a few RAG implementations. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I participated in building a big knowledge base, or whatever. I don't know exactly what this is called. This is probably the improved version of search and information retrieval. But the idea here, as much as also for the chatbots and the virtual assistants, is going to be that this is a context-aware answering. This is basically context understanding. This is basically this expert answers. It's not just generic answers, and which is much harder to implement. And we also see here the chatbots and the virtual assistant. We're way beyond the 2010 to 2012 chatbots answering just simple questions. We're talking about personalized customer engagement. We talk about conversational agents and assistants that are capable of contextual and personalized interaction. Now, on the bottom, I have a link to Databricks. This is their book, big book for GenAI. In addition to kind of introducing and marketing their model, they have a lot of use cases starting from stage 0. So I think it's a good link to kind of take a look, guys. It's a good read. So let's kind of start directly from here. Let's start talking about the GenAI guardrails. Now, I put them in these 4 categories. It's questionable if this is the right way to categorize them, but this was the easiest way, maybe the most simplistic way for me to list those. Because keep in mind, we have a huge level of complexity, and this is kind of, I'm scrolling to the left side. There's a huge intersection. How we prioritize may depend on this intersection. We have challenges everywhere, we have limitations everywhere, we have emerging threats everywhere, and all of this intersected and overlap. So We are going to talk today about the technical guardrails, the human-centered guardrails, a huge topic today, governance and policy guardrails, a little bit more about the carrot and the stick. Well, actually, we don't have too many carrots, and actually, the sticks, we don't know how they're going to hit us, what is the point. So it's a little bit confusing areas. And I did separate the societal, educational, and training guardrails in a separate section because it's a huge topic and we usually undermine this topic, to tell the truth. So starting with the technical guardrails. Of course, their focus is going to ensure the robustness, safeness, reliability, explainability of GenAI systems. I would actually talk about something more like resilience of those systems. So we are kind of putting all those terms under the resilience today. It's a new way to look at. And I brought this resilience even at earlier this year at Davos, our Davos messages, because I think this resilience kind of incorporates a lot of terms that we don't always put together. But before we start talking about any guardrails or any problems or any challenges or any solutions, I'm looking at the huge, and I put into the title of the section, the subtitle, huge expanded threat surface. Think about it this way. We have LLMs when we are talking about data collection and pre-processing, the model training. We talk about model deployment and servicing. We talk about data and models marketplaces. Now, you may be kind of hidden from this complexity because you say, okay, well, I'm going to use this foundational model. I'm just going to adapt it, and maybe I'll do some fine-tuning, or maybe I'll do some RAG, whatever that might be. But they still exist. And by the way, on the very bottom on the left side, I put one article that I did. This is the revamping of third-party vendor assessment. Because at any stage, every single stage of this expanded threat surface, we need to evaluate when we adopt or develop any type of models. So I put this link there for you. We are talking about the integration component, how the generative AI model or a system becomes part of the supply chain. And by the way, I don't know if you guys know, but I am writing a book right now on generative AI supply chain. Because generative AI security supply chain. And I think this is important because these models, they never function by themselves in isolation. And we're talking about multiple agents, multiple models adapted by companies at the same time and interacting with each other. So it increases the complexity greatly. So we'll talk also about the data storage, the transfer, the user interfaces, the applications that come to play together. The testing cycle, do we have specific GenAI test cases? I'll show you examples of this, which I was explicitly asked to create. We're going to talk about monitoring and logging, not just the general way that we know it, but monitoring and logging for the GenAI systems against adversarial attacks into GenAI supply chain. We're going to be talking about third-party service providers, the model updates, the versioning, all the way down to compliance, governance, the human factor in the middle. What does it mean? Our SMEs, the insider threat, how we are actually managing the human factor and the bias and the explainability and the commissioning and disposal. So this is a huge attack surface that we need to provide. And, on the right side, I listed all of top 10 for LLM applications. This came in the end of last year. Great way to group some of those threats. And of course, we have a lot of more examples like the data poisoning attack, the model extraction, parameter exfiltration, adversarial attacks. And I will have some example on those a little bit later in the slide. And I did put the another part that I was part of CSA, another paper, the large language model threats taxonomy. It's a really interesting paper. You probably want to go and take a look at it. So here is one project when we talk about guardrails, because it's a highly regulated industry. I worked on a project to enhance the fraud and risk detection. Now, this slide that I have right now is not from my project. There's an article done, and I have the article link here on the right bottom for you. It talks about what is the evolution of the fraud and risk technology. So before early 2000s, we had the rule-based, or we call it in the industry flat assessments. Then early 2000s up until probably GenAI, I guess. This is the risk 2.0, as defined by the article. When we have machine learning models, but think about it as a 2D. You still have the predictions, you still have anomaly detection, you still have auto-suggestion rules. But again, this is a 2D. And then with the application of Gen AI, which the author kind of classifies as a game changer, we have the 3D models, the patterns discovery, and basically looking for stuff that we don't know previously, patterns that we hadn't seen before. That's really the challenge. So, very nice slide, very nice article. You tell me what is wrong with this slide. Okay, so not to waste the time, because don't want to get in trouble with Rush. He asked for timing to be right, usually. So I'll tell you what is right. It's too rosy. Well, it's green, but it's rosy. And I'll show you right now on the next slide, what does it mean to be rosy? With the question, are we ready for Gen AI? Are we Gen AI ready? So the major challenges that we have and I face behind this project are, first of all, related to data quality. Since I started doing AI, or even since I started doing any analytics really in early 2000s, the end of 1990s, we had a problem with the data quality, data availability, right? And I think we will still continue to have it, although we have Gen AI to help us maybe with that. But now we have also bias, explainability, this black box problem. So we have new things introduced, as I promise you that on the first slide, I'm going to talk about those new things that are coming. We have adversarial techniques, you have evasion, the concept drift, the model obsolescence. We have the regulatory compliance and the governance. So these are new things. And, we are responsible to build this reliable AI foundation. Now, you're going to tell me, well, Maria, it's kind of easy to you to talk. And now if you look at your bullet points, robust data quality, governance, well, how do you really get this? How do you really do this, right? And so, we talk about data validation, but we talk in a new way, right? We talk about using pandas libraries like pandas, NumPy for data cleaning, handling missing values. We talk about data standardization. We talk about implementing data normalization, the feature scaling. We talk about data access control, authorization, authentication, role-based or data component field-based roles. We use Apache Airflow. By the way, I really like the AWS data governance. Take a look at it. I don't have a link here. The link on the slide here is a principle to practice. This is my first paper with CSA. I'm a lead author there, which talks about GDPR, CCPA, President Biden's executive order and other legislative documents and how they impact what we do with Gen AI today. So it's a kind of interesting paper. We also talk about continuous monitoring and model updates. So this is not the monitoring that we are used to. It's a model performance tracking. We are talking here about how to do model accuracy, model precision. We are talking about how to do recalls, how to implement even this concept of data drift detection. Right. So each one of those bullet points, we can have a separate conversation about how this actually is applying to us. And here is one example. This is a project that I worked on. In the end, we were asked to actually look at those adversarial attacks. What are the potentials for the adversarial attacks? What are the vectors? How I can be attacked? So the adversarial attack is targeting the vulnerabilities in Gen AI models. It's aiming to manipulate their behavior and outputs. This attack, they compromise the models, they target the integrity, the reliability, the trustworthiness, and as you see, that's the biggest impact here, right? Because we kind of end up with a biased, inappropriate, or maybe deliberately altered compromised content that is going out, or maybe impact our decisions. So it's obviously something that we need to be prepared. We need to know about that. And so, and also can occur at any stage of the model lifecycle and the supply chain lifecycle. What about training data pipelines, for example? the adversarial attacks can include data poisoning, feature collision. The model development can be attacked through architecture exploitation or transfer learning attack when the attackers are exploiting vulnerability in a pre-trained models used as building blocks. So, we can talk about deployment in inference attacks, the input perturbation, or the prompt injection. So there's a lot of possible ways. And this is just an example. There are two of the attack vectors that I listed, and then how they're formulated, key techniques, implementations, and some examples of what we suggested that we need to be ready for. So it's just for illustrative purposes, just two of those. I can promise you in my book, I have a whole big table on that, but this is an example for the moment. So next big topic around the technical guardrails. This is the code generation. Again, we are talking about the developer productivity, the security productivity, right? The operations productivity, a lot of productivity included here. Now, my first comment here is going to be that we have a proliferation of tools, startup and established vendors that saying, okay, we're using GenAI to help you do ABC. We have threat modeling with GenAI. I had a presentation this January, I believe. We did a big presentation on threat modeling and GenAI, and Iris Risk had several sessions that I attended on applying GenAI for threat modeling. But my advice to you, especially when we're talking about code generation, is do not bother with ChatGPT or Gemini or I think Claude also generates. Now, I've used it. I had a problem. I had to write some Falco policies, and I'm not familiar with the language. So I used the Claude, I think, and with the code and the help that provided to me was extremely valuable. But we are in this professional level grade. So using GitHub, Copilot, or Tab9 is valuable because they're based on OpenAX codecs, right? This is a model that is specifically trained on code, thousands, millions of lines of code. Amazon Code Whisperer and their Q developer, same exact thing. Plus, like if you're a AWS user, this code generators are optimized for the Amazon stack, right? For AWS stack, the EC2, the Lambda, the S3, right? So this is kind of interesting. Now, if you're looking for code reviews or documentation, what's the diff is probably a good tool, right? If you're writing database queries, AI query, or if you're a data scientist, kind of struggling to connect to Google Colab, BigQuery, Jupyter Lab, there's a Chrome extension that actually CodeSquare allow you to connect and to work with it. So it's my first, what is important bullet is choose for purpose. The second is specialized training. And the specialized training is not only helping you to choose the vendor, it's also related to the third bullet on the right. If you'd like your customization, your code styles, your comments, your own imprint, you need to do fine-tuning or some type of a RAG augmentation to adapt these tools to yourself. The problem is usually code coverage in the beginning of the conversation, integration with IDE we discussed with Mark for Veracode specifically. But again, you need to check if it's covering your language, if it's integrating with your IDEs. So this is kind of around the code generation side. Now, you also, what choose for purpose means is point 2, 3, 4, and 5 here on the left side. Are you looking for somebody to assist you, or you're looking for fully autonomous code, for somebody to take from your tickets, read your Jira ticket, and go and do certain tasks? Or you're maybe looking for a code security optimization, like Veracode has, you type the code, the developers are typing code, and then the system actually can go and fix things. So basically tell you, hey, this is wrong. By the way, Cloud Defense has the similar functionality. Very, very, very cool. Very, very nice. Then you have automated code migration. This, I think my colleagues used to call it AI Kobo dance craze, right? And I know IBM has some offerings in this. I don't know how much they work, but then or you're maybe looking directly for code translation, which second might be another good tool for you if you're just rewriting code or reformatting code, right? So this choose for purpose is very, very important here. Now, we have a lot of downsides. We have debugging tools that is needed because we really know what my assistant went and did. A lot of improvements around code customization, multiple language support, this human AI collaboration, how does it work? Companies are not sure. But again, so that's kind of the future directions. Now, I wanted to talk to you specifically about what Cloud Defense is doing and how they're using the code generation. So they're a nice advanced Synapse CSPM solution. And one thing they do is when they detect certain issue, they report it to users. They can have a proper alert, of course, high level, high priority, whatever that might be. But they also provide a code. Let's say I need to go and alter a user that may have, let's say, admin privileges to certain VMs that these users are not supposed to have. And so they use Llama 2 to generate the script, so they can provide the scripts to their users to go and to actually execute through the console, or maybe take it, modify it, run it manually, whatever that might be. So this is a business case for applying the code generation, not just using for development, right? So I think this is a very good example. So talking about the change in coding, again, I don't think that the code assistants are going away. We need to adapt to them. We need to adapt them. And if we kind of learn how to use them, whatever that means for us, it means for us, we need to adjust to it. I don't think it's going back. A lot of companies, there was a research, and I don't remember where I read it. So over 50% of the companies will be applying code generation in certain ways, type, shape, or forms. So what is new? The new is also the development cycle. And so this is my extrapolation. Don't hold me to the numbers, but that's kind of my estimation for all of the projects that I did. And that's because there's a lot of unknowns, right? Now, in the traditional software cycle, we have a discovery. Okay, we have a requirements gathering, validation of the market, competitive, ROIs. That's kind of a pretty standard. And then the biggest portion of the time we spent into actual implementation, development, testing, and then, we have some time for go live, training of the users and stuff like that, and basically moving to production. Now, in the AI project cycle, I found that the discovery phase, it's much, much longer. And it's not that it's new technology. There's a lot of more stuff that needs to happen there. For example, we do the data preparation in this discovery phase. We do evaluation, benchmarking, the initial sampling. We also have to figure out the question. So think about it, how many different implementations I may have between a question, okay, what is my yearly or quarterly revenue and how it differs, or what is the reason for my revenue going down, versus, hey, generate me an email or a new contract with a supplier, and the email maybe should be about how to, help me to negotiate new prices or discounts, bigger discounts, right? So these are completely different questions. They need to be handled differently, different implementations, right? So then, especially when we adapt a predefined, the foundational model, which this is the idea, that we adapt the model, we don't need to all the time start from scratch. This implementation cycle is much shorter. We basically figure out that we need to do end-to-end implementation, this SDLC process, the testing, and then security resilience of the model goes here, the pre-build, to make sure that adversarial techniques, we adversarially train our models, etc. And then the enhancement phase, and can be called anyway, I call it enhancement. We have the major work here done about the model, the accuracy, the performance improvement, the connection, the integration within a supply chain, and how this might be working. And then the go live, I still left it at 5%. Probably it's a little bit more because now this new technology requires a little bit more training for our users, right? But if we've done a good job, this training to the user should be brought to me. So that's my estimation. Don't hold me to it, but it is quite different. The experience is quite different. Next big topic, before we have to kind of wrap up. So these are the autonomous agents. Now, before talking about anything about that, take a look at the word cloud. When you say autonomous agent, what the technical professionals think about? It's the security, it's the risks, it's the API security, it's the ethical consideration, healthcare, meaning highly regulated industries. I think this word cloud is very safe, very, very, very good information. And so when we talk about, especially when we start talking about autonomous and semi-autonomous agent, means that less and less human in the middle is going to be applied. Things are getting very complex. And by the way, what happens today? We have a multimodal agents. We have multiple agents. Companies are merging 3, 4, 5 different agents, and they want to have a UI in front of it. So I'm very biased to this side because for many years prior even to GenAI showing up, I've been working in this space. And I work with a company called BotCopy. They brand themselves very interestingly. They're saying that they're the UI for AI, meaning that you can put multiple agents behind the interface. Because things, and my second point says lack of seamless integration. There is no such a thing as a seamless integration here. Absolutely not. It's difficult to explain, difficult to understand the decision making, a lot of vulnerabilities to be accounted for. And then this intuitive UI UX that is compliant, that follows the data regulations, it's very hard to achieve. So the conversation of buy versus build is very simple here. Many companies are on the buy side. And actually we had one customer and they broke their head, and then they came to us and say, hey, you know what, come and help me because I'm not even half of where I need to be. But what I wanted to give you an example is this contextually aware expert advice or workflow. So for example, if I try to log in and, I have user ID, password, something is wrong, I get frustrated. What is my next action? Call the customer support. Well, every time you call the customer service, this is expensive for the company. And also, what if it's a midnight and the customer service may not be even open, right? So BotCopy can jump in because it's a contextually aware user interface, can say, hey, I see that you're struggling here. Can I walk you through it? And can walk you through it depending if I'm a user, outside user to the company. I might be administrator, I might be a computer side or whatever, some of the IT department, or whatever that might be, depending on my role, right? This is where we are going today. This is how we are talking about contextually and personalized virtual assistant concept. And by the way, there's a good article, Emergence of AI Agent Architectures and Framework. Take a look, I put the link for you there. Now, finally, we're to the second guardrail. This is the human-centered. Extremely important today when people are against and they question at any time point the authenticity, the validity of the AI decision-making. What is our oversight? What is our human involvement? Now, this is a real case. By the way, based on this project that I did, I was leading, and I'm a lead author of the MRM model risk management framework paper that we published at CSA, link on the top right corner. So this was a case study that came to me from a company. They approached me and they said, hey, come here and help us. We have such a backlash from our users. They're just killing us. And so what we had to go to do was to really open up and say, hey, don't criticize my outputs. Don't, we are actually taking responsibility for it. We will talk to you. We will issue a statement. We will put our documentation about how transparently we handle our training data, that we do have a consent for it. We'll document the origins. We'll have these diverse data sources. We'll work on this is the project where I work to augment synthetic data to prevent bias. We'll have regular audits for bias and underrepresentation of our data. We'll talk about published information, the compositions, the sources, the pre-processing, We talk about explainability. We'll guarantee that we have an SME person involved in it. We'll flag. We have flagging criteria. We're going to use model cards, risk cards, scenario plannings, all of those good practices that's going to come. And this worked like magic. Now, we did improve the product itself, but just the openness, that just the user understood, hey, listen, I'm here. I accept the accountability. I accept the responsibility. Worked like magic. And this is one use case that I'm not going to talk too much. This was a project that we were asked to create the use cases. So the CEO basically said, hey, I read about this LLM top 10s. And so now, what are you going to tell me that anytime if I put this model in production, I can get some of those exploited against me? So how should I test? How should I make sure that I'm secure? And so we had to go and create a bunch of test cases. This one is just one example, one of our first examples that actually doesn't suppose malicious activity. It's basically an insider, maybe not intentionally even introducing a compromised, maybe download from the web data set for fine tuning. And when the model was updated with this new data compromised data set, subtly can alter the LLM behavior, maybe swinging it towards a different forecast, or maybe benefiting certain suppliers versus others, right? So it's kind of about bringing all of those things. You can take a look at it. What is the detection? How many years, it will pass before I even know about, I realize what is going on? What is my discovery process, the incident response, the countermeasures, eradication, the recovery, the remediation steps, all of this. And by the way, there's a link of using AI for offensive security, another paper that I participated at CSA, a really good paper, take a look at it. Governance and policies, Guardrails, another paper from CSA that I author here, we wouldn't have too much time to talk about, but very, very important topic. And then the education and training and the societal impact, Guardrails. There on this slide, again, we don't have enough time to talk today if we want to have 15 to 20 minutes for discussions. But again, big topic that we should not neglect. Right. And so now we are coming to the discussion topics, and assuming all of the information that I poured at you for the last 20 minutes, we do have, let's kind of start with what does it mean? What did you guys get from my information, from my presentation, building strong foundation for Gen AI? What that means to you guys? What is important? What is your own experience, really?